today I'm painting lavender, and my name's Sharon Wolfe. It's the first video that I've ever made and published, which I hope I will. So firstly I'm loading a liner brush with thinned with water avocado, and starting from a centre dot I'm creating the centre of my bunch, and I'll do many fine lines coming from that centrepiece, putting no pressure on the tips of the bristles and coming down. I'm going to turn my work upside down because I find it easier coming towards me. And I'm painting the tops of where the blossoms are going to be, lavender blossoms. So many fine lines. You need to practice using the liner brush until you get it working really finely. And when I'm teaching my students, I say to them, imagine that you're touching the surface of the brush with just one hair and no bristles. That way you get very finely lines. Okay, and build it up. You'll notice that I'm going out slightly wider at the top to the bottom, and I'm happy with that at that stage. Wash the brush and blot, and reload with olive green. I'm using all Americana paints today. And starting from that centre knot, not allowing that to go wider, keeping it narrow, I'm going to do a few olive green, need my brush a little bit wetter, a few olive green fine lines right on top of what I've already done, leaving some of the first ones showing through. If you do too much, which I'm in danger of doing, you can go back with avocado green again, but I'm going to continue. You don't see much of this really. Okay, many fine lines. And then one of my favourite colours is Blue Mist. I tend to use these three colours a lot: avocado, olive green and Blue Mist. They're my favourite greens. So I'm loading my brush now in Blue Mist, and I don't twirl the brush through the paint. I pull it and shape it each time I load it with a different colour. So again, fewer of the Blue Mist coming again from the centre out, both directions, very little paint on the brush and very fine, working the brush very
finely.
Try to make your stems start from that centre rather than halfway up, otherwise it looks as though your flower stems have broken. So always try and go from that centre point. Okay, I'm quite happy with that now. Washing the brush. And I've got a very small flat brush here. It's a Jo Sonja brush, one of my favourites, and it's a flat brush number 3. I'm loading the brush with one corner, one edge of the brush into Diox Purple. You can use Traditions or Americana Diox Purple. This is quite a strong one, it's Traditions. And I'm softly blending the colours so that where they meet there's a soft transition of colour from purple to white, so it fades kind of across the brush. I load both sides of the brush as well, picking up a little extra dot of paint, only tiny weeny, and not blend that so much. Starting from the top and using the chisel edge of the brush, which is that straight bit, I'm going to touch down and pull down gently, touch down, pull down gently, touch down, pull down gently, and keep working it like that, little florets of lavender. And I'm not going to make them all absolutely the same like soldiers standing in a row. I'll make some higher than others, some will come down lower. I might even add the odd sort of dot here and there, just on the chisel edge, so there are no strokes. And I sometimes make up flowers where there aren't even any stems, just to add a little bit of variety to it. Everybody has a slightly different look, I've found, to this. And continue building that up until you get the amount of flowers that you want. Okay, I'm not going to do too many. I don't want it to look too symmetrical, as I said. I don't want it to look too uniform. So I'll deliberately start some down slightly lower than a previous one, for example. And bring some out higher, a few little dots, kind of background types. Do your own thing. A few blobs here and there. And I'm quite happy with that, I think. Okay, wash the brush. Now that the stems will be dry, I'm just going to float a little bit of the Prussian blue on one side of my flat brush. You can use an angle brush or use your favourite floating technique. And I'm just going to float a little bit of a shadow at the bottom there, where the bunch will be held shortly by a ribbon. Very little paint, and you only want a slight shadow there. Wash the brush. I tend to wash my brushes as I go. I don't leave them standing in water. Well, I try not to anyway. I'm not perfect. Okay, I'm going to add a tiny touch of white to my stems, just so that they show up a little bit better. And I'm adding a little bit of blue mist and white to the brush, and just a few little strokes just to brighten my stems up slightly. That's enough. That's optional. And while I've got my liner brush out, I'm going to do a ribbon. You can use a tiny detail brush for doing a ribbon. I tend to do that. So again, it's very small. It's a very short liner brush and very fine. Load it up with white paint or any colour you choose. And firstly, start off with a little kind of almost like a U shape, flat U. Then off to one side from that U shape, do a little loop carefully. I tend to do it in 2 stages rather than trying to go all the way around in one. And then I need some tails, so very lightly add some tails. And we're more or less done with the lavender now. Sometimes I add glitter in amongst the flowers as well. I've got some stickles, which is kind of purpley, and I sometimes add that, but a lot of the time people don't really like to use glitter, so it's optional. Now I'm going to do some lace going around the outside edge. So I've got a wet brush, wet and blotted flat brush. I float with a flat or an angle, and I don't usually use any mediums, but you can if you like. Glazing medium is quite a good one. It just makes it a little bit easier to float it. And I'm going to start by adding sort of scallop shapes with not very much paint on the brush. Make sure you've got it blended really nice and sheer, so although it looks quite strong there probably in the camera, it's actually quite weak and sheer. So I'm going to start doing loops. So there's my first one, and I turn my work rather than my hand and come round. They won't all be perfect, but once you've added the dots on, it will all tie in together nicely. Don't butt your scallops up next to each other either. Keep a little gap between, very slight gap. When you get near the end, just decide how many more scallops you can get in before you reach the bottom. If it goes really pear-shaped, you can always go back over with the background colour, which in this case is Prussian blue. They're not all going to be perfect, don't worry if they're not. So I'm coming towards myself all the time, probably have to manage one more little scoop. I don't usually pick up more paint each time, I just go back to my loading zone where I've loaded my paint and just blend on that spot. Now I'm using my stylus with fresh white paint and starting, I'll call it the brow of the hill, the widest point into it. Start there with a dot and then just do ever decreasing dots coming away. So dot, ever decreasing dots coming away. Ever decreasing dots coming away. It's like watching paint dry, isn't it? And you can see that that kind of tidies everything up. A lot of people worry when they do these scallops that they're not absolutely perfect. They're not all the same size, and I don't mind that. This is not factory produced, it's hand done. But if you really want to, you could use a coin and draw some scallop shapes that you could follow with a white watercolour pencil. I use a white watercolour pencil on dark backgrounds because it's so easy to rub out with a damp cloth once you're done. If I'm drawing something, I can draw it and rub it out with I usually use wet wipes a lot actually, wipe it out, straight away it vanishes. Better than an ordinary pencil. Not too many more to do. I'm going to put a lot of paint on there, so I did that one there first. Now you can add, if you wish, some extra sort of lacy shapes, lots more dots and lines and things like that, but I'm not going to do that today. I might do one just to show you. You can use any purple for your flowers as well. I have to remember to look at the camera and see what it can see. Okay, that's just about it. You can experiment with little lines if you want to, maybe from the centre going down. You add more dots, could add another dot at the bottom there. I might skip one and do the other one. Any patterns you like to make you can do. Whoops, I didn't want to do that one. Oh well, it's always a good idea to show you if something goes pear-shaped. I'll just lick a cotton bud and I'll just gently take that out. You should do this when it's dry, by the way. As you can see, I'm smearing my dots a little bit. Learn by my mistakes. Fine line again. A bit too thick, didn't have enough water on the brush. Shape it on the palette. I use these scallops a lot in various things. In my my bears, I use the scallops. Oh, I haven't skipped one, I've done it wrong again. Sorry about that. Bit nervous, even though I'm on my own here. First time I've kind of really tried to do a fairly serious film. How much it's going to work out? If you do it wrong like I have, you can just do every one. If you've forgotten to skip, just do every one instead. There's always something you can do to correct a mistake. So I'm going to do each and every one now because I know that I'm not going to make it all the way around because I've gone wrong. How's that looking? Not too many more to do. It's so quiet in here. It's a miserable day. It's grey and cloudy and cold. So it's the best day to be in the studio working, I think. Okay, and last one, no, second to last one. It seems like I'm taking forever to do this, but it probably isn't that long really. So, I'll call that more or less done, but optional. As I said, if you want to add an extra dot, it would look quite nice to have an extra one there. Oh yeah, I like that. This will take me no time at all. Oh, this one. This design will be available on my Etsy page, which is Artist Shop Crafts. Let's just fix that one there. And notice that when I'm doing very fine detail work, I'll hold the brush very close to the bristles. If I'm doing light, fine, loose work, I'll hold the brush far back on the handle. Just gives you a little bit more control to hold it close to the bristles when you're doing detail work such as eyelashes or something like that. Okay, there we are. I'm going to call that done. I could continue and go and put another big dot in between, but I'm going to call that done. Thank you for watching. Bye.